Hey, what's up, Kip? Good to see you, man. Back for another Ask Me Anything. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I forgot to open my Go before we got started, so just
Open
quick
it, crack it right now.
that's for Littlefield.
Oh, that didn't sound very good. You should have done
Did
it
it
more in the
not sound good?
microphone.
You're
No,
like, that
it's kind of
sounded like
weak.
a non-tap to an armbar is what that sounded like.
It sounded like a Red Bull, not like a Go.
Oh, well, maybe it was
What
my
flavor? I
weight.
can't see what flavor you got there.
I'm working the mango.
Mango's good. I like sour apple sniper and the orange afterburner. Those are my two favorite.
Do you like the pink lemonade?
Yeah, I like them all.
Okay.
Those are just my
Yeah.
go-tos. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the one that we don't get it here at the office, so I forgot what the flavor was, but it was like a tea. And they had it there
Yeah,
at Origin Camp.
It was, yeah, it's the I don't know if they called it the Jocko Palmer. I can't remember, but
That's right.
it's the
It was a
tea and
Palmer.
lemonade
Yeah.
is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good too, which
That one's
was
good.
surprising. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
that
like
one's
that
good.
flavor.
Yeah. Well, good, brother.
Anyhow,
Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting into some questions today. Guys, if you don't know what we're about, today is where we field your questions from. I think we're going to start with the Iron Council, which is our
yes, sir.
brotherhood. That opens up in 10 days, probably 8 or 9 as of the release of this episode.
Yep.
And then
To
we're
learn
also going to
more.
field some. Go ahead. No, you
I,
got it,
I was
man.
just going to say to learn more
Jeez,
about
let
the
me
Iron
back up.
Council.
Let me just back up
Yeah,
here. It's
come on.
your show,
You're
Kip.
taking over my job here. This is my job,
Sorry.
this part
Sorry. Here you
anyway.
go. Go
To
ahead.
learn more about the Iron Council, go to orderman.com/Iron Council. Yeah, 8 days. And that gets you in to kind of get rolling Jan 1. So don't think that like, oh, well, I'm not ready in December. I'll start in January. No, no, no. If you're starting in January, you should be starting now, but absolutely join the Iron Council when we open up for enrollment on the 15th of December.
You know what we should do? I was thinking about it as you were saying that. Next year, we're a little late for this year, but next year we should do 12 days till Iron Council instead of the 12 days to Christmas. And
Totally.
I don't know, we could do some giveaways or get guys geared up and prepped and ready to go. So when they hit the Iron Council, they hit the ground running.
Yeah, like the 12 principles required to win in life, and we
Yeah,
count
something
them
like
down.
that.
Yeah, leading up
Yeah.
to it. Yeah,
All right.
that'd be
Let's remember. Let's mark that one for next year.
Christmas theme. All right, AAR that,
That's
document
right.
somewhere. We're good to go.
That's right. All right, man. Well, let's just jump right into questions then and start getting after it.
Excellent. All right, Clayton Biden, how often do you wrestle with God, and what challenges have you faced when submitting to his will?
First of all, I see Clayton's name come up all the time, and I feel bad for his last name. Like I don't know his
I
politics, but
thought this.
I just can't imagine. I'm not even gonna make fun of it because I'm sure he's like, oh, that's new. Like I haven't heard that one before. I just, man, rough luck, rough go at it
Yeah,
on that one.
totally.
All right,
That's
all
when
right.
Napoleon Dynamite came out, and the brothers called Kip. That was my moment of
Oh
like,
yeah,
really, out of all the characters, I got the cage fighter guy that wants to be training to be a cage fighter that loves technology. No coincidence whatsoever.
sounds about right. Has about the same build as you too, so
Oh, yeah.
sounds about right.
Dick.
How often do I wrestle with God? Is that what it is? Wrestle with
Yeah. How
God?
often do you wrestle with God, and what challenges have you faced when submitting to his will? So when you're doing what you feel is in line with God, and challenges that come with that, or even just wrestling with that.
Yeah, look, I'm not perfect at this by any means, but one thing I do try to do is even in the rough moments, I try to look at the opportunities that will present themselves and how I will be better because of the situation. A great example of that, it sounds weird to say it like that. It's not a great example, but it's an example, and that's the divorce. You know, when that whole thing went down, I thought it was the end of the world and life was going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And it really hasn't been that long. And life's actually pretty good. And that's not to say that I don't have bad days or there aren't challenges that come with being a single father and co-parenting our children, or even just our personal communication. There are rough spots and challenges with that. But I'm in a really good spot right now, physically, mentally, emotionally. The relationship I have with my kids is stronger than it's possibly ever been, even though I only see them half of the time. I'm learning. I've learned new skills that have needed to be learned because of the circumstances. Cooking is one. You know, you guys have heard me for years how bad I hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it anymore. So, you know, there's things like that. There's positives and there's benefits that come with every rough and negative circumstance. And one thing I have to be aware of personally is I will take the credit if I by default, if my not from somebody else, that's not what I'm saying, but if my life gets better or it improves or, you know, I have my health, it's because I did it.
Yeah.
And sure, yeah, there are things that I have done that have made my circumstances better, but everything that I have to remind myself comes from God, and that all the blessings and even the challenges come from him, and that even those challenges, he's working in your favor. He's working on your behalf. He wants you to take those challenges and make yourself better, make yourself a more well-rounded man, a better father, a better husband, a better leader in your community, a better neighbor, just a better human being in general. So I don't ever wrestle with the concept of God. I do wrestle with the concept of religion. I know it's important. I believe it's important. I try to make it to church. I was going to say as often as I can. That's not entirely true either, but I do try to make it to church. There's value in religion that I think a lot of people overlook because they're so jaded by religion or a religious experience.
Totally.
I've never had that personally, but I believe in fellowship. I believe in the ritualized processes of religion. I believe that it's an opportunity for you to remember your covenant with God, to remember the conversations, to have a structured environment, to be able to learn and grow from a spiritual perspective. So I do see the value in religion, but I do wrestle with the idea that it's just this one thing, this one religion, this one set of principles. We talked about this last week that has to be adhered to. And if not, you're going to meet your creator when you die. And he's going to say, nope, you didn't do that one thing.
Yeah. You
don't, based on what I know of him and our relationship, I don't see it like that.
Totally. I see that. I see that. You know, when I read this question from Clayton, I'm like, part of me is like, what do you mean? Like wrestle all the time? Like everything, every moment I have between choosing with right and wrong is a wrestle with, in my opinion, God's will. And I'm not perfect. So all the time I'm wrestling. All the time I'm, not showing up as a father as good as I should. I lose my temper. I'm not being as lovable. I'm not reaching out to the neighbor across the street that I've gotten in my gut telling me I should go over there and let them know I'm thinking about them.
Good
or
one.
the text message that I didn't send to the person that crossed my mind earlier today. Like, there are so many wrestles, if you want to use that term, that I have. And I do think they're wrestling with his will, because his will is what? For me to do the right thing, to be in integrity and to put other people before myself, and the opportunities for me to, whether it's take credit or be selfish with my time, and lose sight of a greater intent in regards to what we're doing, and get my pride involved. Absolutely. All the time. And I think, and I don't, because we're not perfect, I don't know if that's wrong. I think maybe I should focus on reducing the amount of times I'm wrestling with those things. But I think there's also value in knowing that I'm willing to go to the mat and wrestle. And that at least I'm fighting for that. And I'm not willing to give up and just say, it is what it is, and take credit and not give it where it belongs.
I will say also, to your point, that wrestling with God's will is the natural state of man. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing broken in you. You aren't thinking or doing anything that any other human being on the planet doesn't do or think. It's the natural state. We are fallen. So the natural state is for you to wrestle with that. And I think if you acknowledge it and every day you work to win that match, if you will, then that's what he would have us do.
Yeah. And this is why I think it's so critical that we keep wrestling. Because when you stop fighting, what are you accepting? That my success is my success. And the reason why I'm doing this is to prop myself up. And it's not about other people. And I stop reaching out to others and putting, my children first before like, that's the default when we're not willing to fight. And thus the importance of keeping the fight and staying on the path of fighting.
Yeah. Okay. What's next?
Rick Blalock, in the spirit of this month's topic, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the goal of counting calories versus eating clean, avoiding processed sugars, and etc. These guys are going to hold your feet to the fire, by the way. Do you value one method over the other when it comes to weight loss?
So this week we're talking about the topic of the month inside of our Brotherhood, the Iron Council, is eat to live. I said this month, eat to live. And we did it in the month of December by design, because this is probably the hardest month
to do it.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest month to eat clean, because my neighbor, she's a great woman. She brought up some bread the other day, some banana nut bread. I want it so bad, and it's sitting there. My son eats it in front of me and just lives it up, and I want it so bad, but I don't. But you have people and cookies. A neighbor brought cookies, homemade chocolate chip cookies the other day. I wanted to eat them so bad, but I didn't. So this is the hardest time. So the question was counting calories versus eating clean. I think you can do both. Personally, I don't count calories. Well, it's not entirely true. I don't really worry too much about calories. I worry more about eating clean and portion sizes. And I know what's overeating and I know what isn't. For example, with meat, I could eat, 12 to 15 ounces of meat and I'll be full. And that's fine. And if I eat that and half a cup of vegetables, I could just do that for a month and be fine. Maybe add some sugars in there. I try to reduce the carbs. Not that I don't have any, but I'll eat chips. I'll eat breads. I'll eat crackers. That's where it gets me. So I just eliminate that. Starches, rice. I don't like, people like I don't like sweet potatoes. I think they taste disgusting. But I eat a lot of rice, like couscous, stuff like that for the starches. So I don't know. I'm not as dialed in my approach, because I know if I'm just doing the right thing, which is control portion sizes, intermittent fasting for me, and then eating the right things, then the calorie stuff doesn't seem to be as big of an issue. Plus I'm training a lot lately as well, which gives me another 300 to 500 calories that I could potentially eat if I chose to. I don't alter my diet just because I'm working out or training or doing something like that.
Yeah.
So in the past 7 days, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I am down over 4 pounds in the past 7 days, which is good for me because I don't have a ton to lose. I could lose probably another 8 to 12, I would say, is probably ideal. But for me, it's just building muscle. And that's why protein's big on the list right now for me.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
I know Rick's asking the specifics here, but I can't help but think guys are listening and want to jump on this train. And I'm projecting a little bit because I see this, or I hear this all the time, where guys get this crazy diet when in reality, probably what they should be doing is just stop drinking soda. Right. So figure out where you are. That's what Ryan's doing, but figure out the low hanging fruit and address the issue. You don't have to be eating, yams and chicken, when you're down in sodas, 3 times a day currently right now. Just stop doing that and stop eating the sweets. Right. And a lot of guys count calories. Why? Because to be honest, I'm ignorant to it. When I start tracking my calorie intake, I'm usually shocked, holy crap. There's that many carbs in that, and then it changes my perspective in regards to what I should be eating, because I'm so ignorant to the micronutrients and so many different things. And so that's one benefit of counting, is just so you understand what you're actually putting into your body.
The other day, my son and I went to the gym, and when I turned my watch on, I have my programs and all that, and I burned a little over 300 calories at the gym. And I got thinking, I was like, oh, let's go over to the convenience store. And sometimes I like to get Almond Snickers is my go-to sweet of choice if I'm at a gas station. And I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, man, I just spent an hour busting my ass. I burn a little over 300 calories. I think you're over 400 calories if you get the king size on a Snickers.
Yeah.
So I worked out for an hour, bust my ass, take an hour out of my day. Like, not that it was all bad. I enjoyed being at the gym and working out, but what, 3 minutes? And I just negated everything that I just did right there. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I love to translate. I started doing this with my wife, but I have her translate like snacks to running.
Oh yeah.
and all the motivation starts showing up. I'm like,
totally.
This cookie, how long is this? She's like, that's about 8 miles. I'm like, screw that. I don't want the cookie. Like
8 miles.
I would not run 8 miles for that cookie. And so you start doing that, like you don't need anything because like if you have to run for it, that's not worth
no way. I do actually track my calories in a roundabout way. I document my food, and it's an app that I use called and Johnny Loretti has me set up on this so he can view it too, but it's MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go in there and I put all of my water, I put all of my food, every time I eat, everything I just go ahead and throw right in there. And it's not a perfect science. I don't weigh my food. But I have a pretty good idea of the portion size. And I throw it in there. I don't usually go in and look and say, okay, I got to hit, 2000 or 2,500 calories. I don't, but it is an added little level of accountability where I know I'm going to have to put it in there, and I know Johnny's going to look at it, and I know I'm going to see it. So I want that thing to look as clean as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. The value of tracking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Bryce Beatty. I'm a relatively stubborn individual when it comes to my learning style. That's not to say that I'm not open to hearing about and understanding how others learn or trying to apply knowledge passed on from others. But more than lessons learned from experience, however, painful and regretful, carry more learning power than those delivered through a verbal or written forum. What tips do you have for taking written and verbal advice that makes sense intellectually and rationally, but may not 100% resonate with you emotionally, and then transcribing that into language that lights the fire underneath you?
I'm emotionally charged by results.
Yeah.
I'm not emotionally charged by tracking my calories, if we're going to use that example.
Yeah.
But I am emotionally charged by looking in the mirror in the morning and saying, man, I can see that pound you lost. Or my son the other day, taking my shirt off and I threw it in the washing machine. And he's like, Dad, you look good. He's like, I can see you've already lost weight. That to me is more motivating than going on the FitnessPal app and saying, hey, you did a good job. You tracked that meal or whatever.
Totally.
So and of course, negative circumstances are even more emotionally charged. When something goes horribly wrong, that's even more emotionally charged. So I mean, the premise of the question is, are you being stubborn just for the sake of being stubborn? You say you have this stubborn learning style. And I wonder, and I only ask this because I know I am. Sometimes I'm hard-headed. Kip, you might tell me, hey, here's a good way to do it. And naturally I'm like, well, I want to figure it out on my own.
Totally.
Same thing we would do as a 6-year-old little boy who's like, no, I want to tie my shoes on my own. And you got to spend an hour watching him tie his shoes. It's like, let me show you. No, I want to get it. I want to get it. Totally. We do the same thing as grown men. And sometimes it's our own ego that gets in the way. And maybe the switch here is, how do I let go of my ego? And how do I turn to, and here's a bit of advice, turn to qualified professionals who are achieving the results that I desire in my life, and trust them, and be humble, and ask good questions, and try things in a way that you've never tried before. We have guys who come into the Iron Council and they'll do 90% of what we ask them to do. And the other 10, they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't, that's not for me. It might not be for you, but that's why you're producing the results that you're producing in your life. So are you satisfied with where you are? No. Then do the extra 10%. Do it for 30 days. I know it works because when I do it, it works. When you do it, it works. When thousands and thousands of other men have done it, it works. So do it that way for 30 days. And then be emotionally charged by the results that you will inevitably see in your life. So I understand when somebody tells you like, hey, you should do it this way, it's not fun. but it's not supposed to be fun. That's why we do the battle plan the way that we do it. We look at our object first, we look at our vision, which is emotionally charged, work into our objectives, which are more metric based. Like I want to lose this much weight, for example. And then we move into our daily tasks, things that we can do on a daily basis that will produce the objective, that will fulfill the vision. We do it that way for a reason. And this is scientifically proven to work. And if you do it that way, then you're not really worried about, oh man, I got to do this thing I don't want to do today. And this kind of sucks. And I want to learn the hard way. No, you just know that this is part of what needs to be done in order to achieve your emotionally charged vision for yourself. What would you add, Kip?
Well, the only thing I'd add, Bryce is kind of like, well, I'm kind of stubborn this way. I want to clarify 70% of people learn through experience. 20% learn through discussion or informal, right, discussions, and only 10% learn from like verbal written lecture. So you're normal on the job training. That is how most people learn. Now, where I hear him he's getting hooked up is maybe he listens to something that Ryan says, goes, oh, that's interesting, but he doesn't apply it to the actual on the job. Right? Because he's unwillingness to go, oh, well, it didn't motivate, it didn't connect in a way that transforms me. Guess what? Most things don't transform you. Absolutely not, until you actually take action. So the question is how do I hear something and then move it to application so I can act on it? And for me, I think, and we've talked about this in the past, but I'm kind of the stick kind of guy, right? You're like, oh, I heard Johnny mention something about my health and what I should do. But you know what? Like, it sounds great. Logically makes sense, but applying it, man, it just doesn't connect. We'll get connected to the impact if you don't. That is how I operate. And trust me, it's deeper than the little lame stuff. Like, and I'll use fitness as an example because it's an extreme one. Often we'll look at fitness. Let's say I'm overweight and we'll go, well, Kip, get present to the impact. Oh, well, the impact is that I don't look sexy with my shirt off. And the impact is I might die, a few years, earlier than I would if I was healthy. And I get there. That's kind of like blue belt level impact. Black belt level impact is the bad habits that your kids pick up and they have low self-esteem because of your lazy ass. That's black belt impact. And so I would suggest if it's valuable to us, trust me, their impact's there. So what's left on the table by you not showing up powerfully? Get present to that, because that's where your regret is going to come from when we go later on our lives and we realize that we didn't show up powerfully and serve and benefit those in our lives because we were unmotivated or not disciplined enough to actually show up powerfully in our own lives.
It's awesome. I mean, yeah. The only thing is you were saying that I would add, because you had talked about, oh, not everything's going to motivate you. Just find something that does.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Like we talk about this all, and I think there's this concept around should, and I even say that like a man should X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's true.
And there are things that I believe a man should be a protector, provider, presider. A man should be working out and exercising his body. There's certain things that I think are universally true that I don't really feel like we need to even rationalize or justify. It is. A man should be fit and strong. Of course. Like, who's going to argue with me on it? Well, there will be, but it's just insane to think anything else. But then there's other things that a man should do jujitsu. No, I don't think so. Should he be trained? Should he be physically capable of taking care of himself, of protecting himself, of fighting? Yeah. So maybe jujitsu is not your thing. Maybe Muay Thai is. Maybe some sort of other striking. Maybe wrestling. Maybe boxing. I don't know. Whatever. But there's 1,000 different ways to go about doing that. It's the same thing with people. Sometimes will say this about occupation. Well, it doesn't feel like I'm a man. Well, I never went to any occupation and saw a little pair of testicles on a job description. Yeah. Like, if you want to dance, I mean, that's one. If you want to dance and you can make a living dancing and you're a man, I don't care. That doesn't make you less manly. It makes you more manly because you're actually fulfilling a responsibility or a requirement or a job, doing something you love. and you're fulfilling and meeting your obligations. That's the requirement, not what exactly you do. So there's an infinite number of ways to do it. There's also an infinite number of people to listen to. If you listen to me, I had a guy on one of our YouTube videos yesterday put a comment. He's like, the cadence of your voice is annoying. This sucks. And normally I'd be
brutal, man.
It's not though. It's just people who are upset or bots or whatever. Yeah, it's
true.
But 3-4 years ago, I would have been upset or maybe made another comment back or something to some robot or some 11-year-old punk kid who's just messing with people, you know? And yesterday I was like, I didn't even say anything, but in my mind, I was like, then find somebody else. Like, you don't have to listen to me. And we do. If you like Jordan Peterson, listen to Jordan Peterson. If he bugs you, listen to Jocko. If he bugs you, listen to Andy Frisilla. If he bugs you, listen. I've had 450 guys on. Listen to somebody who inspires you. Yeah. And then, like you said, inspires you to translate to action.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that's, I was thinking about this the other day because I had a conversation with an employee around what causes greatness in people. And we have many examples where we could look at individuals that had really traumatic childhoods, right? And they rose above and it played a part in their greatness. And I think it played a part in their greatness because the stakes were high, because their hand was forced around the impact. Because if they didn't do something, then it was going to be really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we all have to have that, but transformation and paradigm shifts, they're kind of rooted in that space of being fully present to the impact of how we show up in the world. That's why when people get divorced, it rocks their world, because you're forced with dealing like, okay, what's now going to be my impact? And if I don't pivot and change, do I want to do this again? Well, you could come up with that realization before getting divorced, but we choose not to. And it's not until that is in our face that we're forced to deal with that. So we can make that choice and identify that level of impact and do that through agency, not have it forced upon us. I really do believe that. Do you believe that at all? Or do you feel like, I don't know, that you can, through choice, get present to impact and have transformation and paradigms in regards to how you see the world? Or do you think the world has to act upon you?
No, I think you can. It takes two things, I believe.
It's harder.
It is harder. And you said one of them. It takes presence, so being aware of it. And it takes one other thing that most of us lack: courage. Because let's say, for example, you notice your marriage is on the rocks. Maybe you're even present to it, but you don't think it's as bad as you do, but you lack the courage to bring up a difficult conversation. It's not going to get better. If you notice that your physical health is just deteriorating and maybe you're drinking too much, or you're 50, 80, 100 pounds overweight, and you know it's bad, you know you need to do something, but you're too afraid to go into the gym for the first time, then you're going to get diabetes before you go to the gym. So it takes presence and it takes courage to do what you know you should be doing. And courage doesn't require anything. There's no prerequisite to courage. There's no level of confidence that you need. In fact, if you're confident in the thing, you wouldn't need courage at all, because you wouldn't be afraid. So there's no prerequisite to courage. Courage stands alone. You can just decide to be courageous in the moment. And that means having a difficult conversation with your wife, going into the gym, starting that business, even with the fear of failure. All the things that you know you should be doing require courage, which does not require anything else before you exhibit it.
I'm glad I asked that question. That's a really great distinction. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, it's important.
Josh Fryer: in my family, the Christmas season is filled with emotional highs and lows. Fun family outings lead to overtired kids and overextended budgets. Baking trays of goodies leads to lots of smiles, but many tears were shed during the process. Conflicting invites lead to hurt feelings and holiday politicking. Many of these things are done in the name of tradition and found memories of doing it ourselves as youngsters. For those of other faiths, I imagine that there are similar experiences with the holidays, such as Diwali and Ramadan. So here's my question. How do you discern between valuable traditions, expected traditions, and busy work traditions?
One that I had a hard time with, I still do, is family pictures and postcard thing. Like, I have to go out and
Yeah.
spend $500 on postcards to send out to people I don't even know. Help me understand this. Like, help me understand the insanity.
That's funny.
That's dumb. Like, I don't. I gotta be careful because I'm gonna get postcards from people who hear this podcast.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm doing right now. I'm
I
multitasking, taking you
know.
off my list of.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. I think you just decide. Look, I think you let some things go. Look, the postcard thing again. Look, the postcard thing is dumb. Is it that dumb that I had to make a big stink of it all the time? No, not really.
Yeah.
So that's one I probably, given the chance to do it over again, I would just let go of. If it's important to her and it cost me a few $100, but she likes it and I'm okay, I'm in the financial position to do it, that I don't need to be as frankly as I can say, a little bitch about it.
Yeah.
Like, just let it go. And I think there are some things that we can just let go of. You know, if mom wants you over early because she wants the grandkids there, but you're busy, give her one. Take one for the team. And if it doesn't really impact you that much, maybe we just let go of things a little bit and just realize, hey, this is an important time for other people too. Now, there are some things that conflict. And in those conflicts, I would say number one is have a clear plan with your wife. That's the most important thing. She's first, not your mom, not your family, not her family, not your kids, no, she's first. You guys are a partnership. So have a clear expectation with her. Hey, hon, every other year we go to each other's in-laws. So this year's my year, next year's your year, and so on and so forth. As long as you guys are on the same page, then you can talk about who takes the lead in that conversation. She might not feel comfortable doing it, and so you do it, or vice versa. But as long as you're on the same page and then you're just communicating those expectations, and here's another part of letting go of the result of it. If you're having a conversation with your mom, for example, about, hey, this is the year that we go over to Cindy's families, that's it. And if you bring that conversation up early and the expectation is there and you always follow through on that, great. If you can make some other concessions like, hey, we go over there every other year, we're going to be there this year, but we can come over on Tuesday night and we can do a little gift exchange, or we can have a small dinner, or we can do a breakfast. You can make some concessions where you can. But yeah, expectations, letting go, and then making some concessions on some things that don't really actually matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Where I go wrong here is I will sacrifice the value of the event for the convenience of the moment. I don't want to go get a tree at the lot and see the Santa Claus and paint the reindeer and it's freezing cold. Like, I don't want to do it. And so I might jump on Josh's train and go, well, this is one of those traditions that's dumb. But in reality, my kids soak it up. They love it and they'll remember it because we do it every year. And so these aren't necessarily like polarizing dichotomies either, right? It's like, well, it's a waste of time, or is it difficult? Well, sometimes it's worth it and it's difficult. So the question is, what's the fruit that you're trying to get off the tree, and is it valuable enough? And if so, maybe the answer is change our attitude a little bit and enjoy it, don't make it wrong, because that's what our kids will remember. So, but that's where I go wrong. Like, I think like, oh, we shouldn't do these things, but I know once we do them, I go, yeah, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
So
the opposite is also true, where you might have a tradition or you play some sort of nostalgic story in your head and you think, well, I'm going to do this with my kids, and they hate it.
It's so amazing. Yeah. And it's not.
Yeah. Like, I was thinking about this. I bought some ornaments the other day when my kids were with their mother, and I saved them. I set them by the tree. I saved them. I set them by the tree. And I was like, this will be fun to do when they come over on, Wednesday night. This will be fun. We'll all do it together. It was not fun. I didn't mind it. It was fine with me. I liked it. Decorate the tree together as a family. And my oldest is like, this dumb dad, can I go play Fortnite, or like, can I go play basketball? And my youngest is like, yeah, I want to play video games. And my two kids are like, we're going to go wrestle. And I'm like, well, that's the only one decorating the tree
by yourself,
which I could have done 2 days earlier and that would have been fine, without all the headache and hassle. And it's fine. It really is fine. But then there's other things, to your point, where they do enjoy and they do like, and I can make those concessions, and I can realize that this is an important part of their experience growing up that they'll never get back when they turn 42 years old, like me, and finding joy in that as opposed to the activity.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Trevor Burrow, having touched on your dating life last week, at your stage in life, assuming you don't want more children, what constitutes a woman of value for you? I was curious because the typical factors of youth and or reproductivity capacity most likely aren't as high of a priority.
Those are liabilities at this point.
Let's get right into this.
Those two things at this point are liabilities for me as a 42-year-old man. Somebody who's young, like just immaturity comes to mind. You see these guys who go through divorces or midlife crises and they start dating 20-year-old women. I'm like, oh, that sounds miserable. I mean, she looks great, but that sounds miserable.
Oh,
so I would say, yeah, that's a liability. Reproductivity. Yeah, I'm not interested in more kids. So if I were to date somebody who wanted more kids, it's a no for me, and it's a no for them.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Not alignment.
Fine. Yeah. And it's important to figure that out, because you could fall in love with somebody who you're misaligned with on important issues like children, for example. You can very easily fall in love with somebody like that. And then your love takes over, and then it just creates a whole bunch of problems down the road. So I'm really interested in dating people, women who are aligned with me in those big, important factors. But a high value woman, I think, is somebody who is, here's the biggest thing. Somebody who doesn't need me, actually, that's a value that I find really attractive, and I would say a high value characteristic, signal, I guess, maybe, because it means that they can take care of themselves, and it means they're independent, and it means that they're intelligent, or maybe have their financial house in order. It means a whole lot of different things. So I don't want to be with someone who needs me. I want to be with somebody who doesn't need me, but chooses me. I also think high value in a woman is somebody who can be honest with you about their past, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as a man who has dated women, obviously because of my age, who have gone through divorces and have children, like I have baggage. We all have baggage. And I want somebody who can shoot straight with me about it. Somebody who I can see has learned from those things, as I hope I have and will continue to learn. A little bit of financial independence is important. Finances are important to me. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody who is reckless with their money, that's not going to work for me. That's going to be an issue. We are going to have problems. So I want somebody who has their financial house in order. Whether they make decent money or not is less relevant to me because of the income that I make, as to how they handle and how they make financial
stuff.
Debt, sure.
Yeah.
Debt. What are their spending habits like? Those type of things.
Got it.
And then also, if again, as a man who, obviously has dated and will date women that have children, I want to know what kind of mother she's going to be, what kind of mother she is.
Totally.
If I see her interacting with her child or children and I cringe, or I don't like the parenting style, that's not going to work for me either. I've got 4 kids.
It's going to be a mess.
Yeah. So I need somebody who is a good mother, who I can see has a great relationship with their daughter or son or children. That's important to me, because I want to be a good dad. And if I'm going to have this woman in my life, I want to know that I can be confident in the dynamic, which is hard enough as it is if you're merging families. But I want to be comfortable enough in the dynamic where I feel like this can be a partner to me and a mother in a way to my children. That's important. It's crucial. I would say those are the biggest factors. There's little things, of course, that aren't as big, like what color hair does she have? Like, that's not a high value thing, right? What does her body look like? I mean, body's important.
Yeah.
Obviously physical attractiveness, but body is important because is this a person who takes care of themselves, their health? I try to. I want somebody who's going to do the same. Because if they don't take care of themselves physically, but you do, not only are you going to be not as attracted to this individual, but they're never going to get you. They're never going to understand you. When you get up and you say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym at 5 a.m., they're like, why? And it's always going to be contentious. So
yeah, totally. So listen up, ladies. To learn more about Ryan, go to orderaman.com for his complete profile and top 100 list items, including your physical characteristics. That is a top priority. Orderaman.com.
I actually own that website, by the way. That is legitimately certifiably true. No, I'm not putting my picture up there, but maybe I'll help some of the other men and women find a companion this holiday season.
We should just take the guy, because the guys of the Iron Council are high caliber men. We take a survey, figure out everybody that's single, and they have a corresponding profile on orderaman.com. It's brilliant, and you can make money. Like, charge them a monthly to have their profile up. If they get married, then you get a bonus, for every year of marriage that was successful. Or I don't know.
They have to pay me for every year that they're successful. I like that. I like where your head's on that one. I don't know if that would fly, but I do like that idea. You made it 5 years. Congratulations.
And I know Ryan's an ordained minister for $1,000. So if you happen to get married from orderaman.com, your wedding can be done by Mr. Mickler himself.
You're getting me in so much trouble. I think I'm ordained in one state. So if you happen to be in the great state of Louisiana, then you and I can talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. Okay, Greg Cleaver.
Is it good? Because you just created a whole bunch of problems for me on the back end that you would never see.
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking, if I was a chick dating Ryan, this is the episode I'm listening to, right? And I'm just kind of listening to what he thinks is valuable, and probably placing all types of pivots and adjustments in my relationship. So you probably shouldn't have it out there. But
maybe I'm good at picking. I don't know. I'm good at picking. Yeah. And maybe that person already checks all the boxes.
Totally. You want to hear a funny story? Quick funny story. I got divorced. I was probably, I don't know, 26, 27. And I go to a club, meet this super cute girl, get her number. We exchange numbers. Like a couple days later, she goes, hey, I have tickets to go watch the Plain White T's in concert. Do you want to go? Absolutely. Sounds great. So we go to concert, have a great night. I'm kind of digging her, right? She's super pretty. And the next day I buy her that CD. This is back in the day when people bought CDs. So I bought the CD of their new album. And I said, hey, where are you at right now? I have something for you. And I want to drop that off as kind of a gift of like, hey, thanks for taking me to that concert. Gives me the address. I go to this house, I knock on the door, and this older gentleman answers. And I ask for her. He's like, oh, yeah, let me go get her. And I'm thinking,
like, what is going on here?
Is that her dad? Right. And so I'm like, hey, so who all lives here? And she's like, oh, I live with my parents. And I started asking other questions that I should have asked like weeks ago. Like, how old are you?
Yeah, that'd have been the
and
first
all
question.
These other questions. And I was immediately like, I am out of here as fast as humanly possible before dad goes, how old are you? And, oh, you have 2 kids and you've been divorced. I'm like, oh, I am off base here. Like,
wait, how old was she? She was 18 at least.
She's like a freshman in college. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is not going to work. And so I obviously never saw her again, but I was like, yeah, I should have clarified some things up front before we started dating. So
yeah. Yeah. Dating is interesting. All right, what's next?
Yeah, better you than me. All right, Greg Cleaver.
Thank you.
Do you believe that personal rights and freedoms have any boundaries, or dare I say this, limitations? By this, I mean at a point at which an individual's personal rights seriously impacts the collective good of other individuals. He uses like a quick example here. For example, a mental health patient with paranoid schizophrenia living mostly independent in a community who has successfully agreed to personal rights to refuse to take medication and puts others at risk. I'm
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, he's just, and that's the question is there a case where personal rights isn't the top priority?
Yes, of course. Of course. And here's the line. Your personal rights don't supersede my personal rights. That's the line.
Yeah.
So if you're a paranoid schizophrenic, I think is the term he used, and you live in my neighborhood and you impose your personal rights, but it infringes on mine, then you've crossed the line. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You don't get to infringe on my personal rights because you have your own personal rights. So our personal rights extend to the point of infringing on other people's rights.
What's your thoughts when it comes to mitigating that? So for instance, in this example, the person's personal rights is, hey, I'm schizophrenia. I don't want to take the medication, but maybe I haven't infringed on anybody yet, but because of the concern of infringing on other personal rights, we take away the personal right for someone to get off their medication.
Then you're taking away their personal rights, and it hasn't infringed on yours yet. It falls within my qualifier. You're asking to take away somebody's personal rights. This is not Minority Report here. Like, we don't know it's unfortunate. Like, I know there's dangerous people out there, and this is why it's so important that we are vigilant, that we are trained, that we protect ourselves and other people, that we secure our places, that our dwelling is safe and comfortable and secure. That is very important, because there are dangerous people out there who have never, quote unquote, been dangerous yet. But we don't get to infringe on those personal rights because they have not yet infringed upon anybody else's. Now, once they have, then it's punitive. There's punishment. That could be that we just remove them from society because they've chosen on their own that they don't want to adhere to the standard, which is you can have your rights as long as you don't infringe on other people's. And so that's prison, that's punishment. In some cases, the death sentence. We need to remove those people from society. Now, in the case of mental illness, have they chosen? I would say, I mean, I'm not a mental health professional, but somebody who's severely mentally handicapped or mentally challenged or has some sort of mental diagnosis, yeah, I think you can make the argument that they haven't chosen, but that doesn't mean that because they haven't chosen, now they get a pass to infringe on my rights. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
So that person has to be removed appropriately from society. Is that somebody who can be counseled and redeemed? Good. Let's as a society think about doing that. Is that somebody who is a constant danger to society because they have proven to be a constant danger? Then we need to eliminate that person from society. It's the only way, in my mind.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the dangers of preemptively taking away rights to help mitigate risk?
Well, that's an easy one. The danger of preemptively taking away rights is who gets to qualify and what are the qualifiers. So, for example, if you red flag laws are one.
Yeah.
You know, and look, I think there's certain circumstances where you voluntarily relinquish your right to carry a firearm in this country. If you're a felon, yeah, I don't want felons carrying firearms. I'm okay with that. But who gets to decide? And what are the parameters in which they decide when and where and what is appropriate to take away somebody's firearm, just as an example? So the danger is we're giving away our personal sovereignty, hoping that somebody else is virtuous, righteous, and noble. And they're not. Absolutely. Because we're not all the time. So we know they're not. And their goals and their values and their desires aren't going to be in alignment with ours. So that's the problem with letting somebody else dictate when it's appropriate and when it isn't. It's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure we could sit here for another hour and talk through all the scenarios that could go wrong in that example. And what we've done, what government has done thus far and done so poorly. So it's not just like hypothetical. It's like we have evidence of that not working out very well.
Yeah, which leads us to believe, at least me to believe, I used to think that certain policies were based on stupidity or ignorance. And I think some are. But because of the mountains and the piles of evidence we have around economic systems, for example, we can now, it's safe to assume, come to the conclusion that this isn't ignorance or stupidity. This is malicious. And there's a greater design here than we didn't know communism didn't work. Like, you know how it works. Yeah, don't play the stupid card.
Yeah. All right. Hopping over to Facebook. Join us there by going to facebook.com/group/orderman. Jason King, your best books of the year.
Best books of the year. Wow.
Just offend half your guests on the podcast.
Yeah, that's easy to do. I really like all of Jack Carr's books. If you're looking for something fictional, Jack Carr, James Reese series is really good. I really enjoyed the last two books. In fact, I'm still going through them right now. Limitless, by Jim Quick. We talked about this, and Moonshot by Mike Massimino. Both are podcast guests in the last 4 weeks or so. Both of those are really good. My books are out front, so it's hard because sometimes I have to look at them to remember which I read and which I really liked.
Is men's work resonating with you quite a bit?
Work.
I mean, I know it's fresh, but
yeah, men's work was hard for me at first to get through. Connor Beaton's a friend, and we even talked about this. I was on he was on my podcast. It was hard for me to get through because that's a side that I was really closed off to. The shadow work, father wounds, emotional work. It's different than the way that we approach it, but that's one that does resonate with me quite a bit, actually. Now that I know Connor and where he's coming from, and I see a lot of what he puts out on social media, I'm like, yeah, it's actually really good. And it gives me a perspective that I don't typically go to immediately on my own.
Yeah, totally. All right, Steve Hughes, how do you change an ingrained negative attitude towards a business held by the employees? I enjoy what I do, and the majority of the team are great to work with, yet I find myself more and more not wanting to go to work. It is only a minority that have a negative attitudes, yet they seem to have the loudest voice. I know I'm not the only one. It is taken a toll on, yet upper management don't seem to be interested in rectifying the issue, even though it has been mentioned by many employees over the many months. So just like people coming to work and having a negative attitude about being there. Is that what you got out of that?
No, I think not a negative attitude about being there. I think they're creating a toxic work environment. This is what I'm gathering.
Got it. Yeah. Through their negative attitudes of work.
Yeah, sure.
Got it.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's just work necessarily or just their attitude. I mean, we don't know that. Right. We don't know what that is, but yeah, I would say, I think we're on the same page. Well, look, I mean, really, there's only a handful of things you can do. You can make a decision just to be happy and cheerful and do the best work that you can do in the circumstances you're in.
Against the grind. Yeah.
I mean, and hopefully you can recruit a couple of people along the way who see that, man, this guy's doing it. I can do it. He seems to be positive. He seems to be moving the needle. He's getting pay raises. He's getting promotions. I think I'm interested in that. And you take those people with you and, like, let's do this together. And you lead the charge in changing the culture in the dynamic of the organization. You do that whether or not these people join you or not, because it's going to make your life better. You could be miserable at work, or you could decide not to be. And you could be, for me, I wouldn't even say be happy, because I think sometimes it's just be happy. No, be productive. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Win.
You just be as productive as you can be. And know that having a negative attitude or dealing with certain people is not going to help your productivity. So you purge those people to the degree that you can from your personal ecosystem that you're creating at work.
Yeah.
So the first choice is always, we talk about this. How many times have we talked about this, kid? Maximize every opportunity that you have at work first.
Yeah.
Then from there, that's going to create opportunities for you either in your current work environment, or you're going to begin to see other opportunities elsewhere. And then you're going to leave and go to a company, go back another organization, or start your own business. Go back either a week or two and listen to the podcast, the Friday Field Notes I did on gratitude. That one is probably, not to toot my own horn on this, but that one is probably one of the most important Friday Field Notes I've done. I think I titled it A Pragmatic Guide to Gratitude. And there's 5 points in there that I make that will help you see why being grateful for your circumstances is actually a very pragmatic approach to life. It's not woo-woo. It's not hazy. It's very pragmatic.
Yeah.
And I also talk about some things to be aware of. One of them is that the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And even if it is
water.
Well, think about this. Here's one thing I thought about with that analogy that we often use. The grass is greener on the other side. Well, if you take your current habits, the way you maintain your current yard, and you take that over to the other side, do you think that grass is going to stay green? Or do you think that's going to become brown and dirty too and die?
Absolutely. Yep.
So learn what you can learn now to maintain your current field, your current grass, and see if you can get that grass green first before you go over to the other side. That's what I talk about, for example, in marriage. A lot of guys will leave a marriage because they're not interested, they're not happy, they're not satisfied. So they'll step out on their wife, or they'll just flippantly go through a divorce or separation thinking, oh, it's her, it's the woman. I got to go find a different woman. It's like, hold up. I mean, you might be right. We don't know yet. You might be right. But let's come up with a plan for you to water your current garden and get that grass green first. And if it works, great. You don't need to go. And you can maintain your responsibility. You can uphold your obligation and commitment. There might be children in the picture. Certainly, it's going to be a better financial decision for you. So let's see if we can fix this. If after doing the work, you can't fix it and you decide, hey, I'm out, then when that next healthy woman comes into your life, you're going to be able to do this the right way because you already learned the skill set you needed to learn in order to have a more healthy relationship moving forward.
Absolutely. Here's a tactical thing for Steve really quick. And there's ways that you can lead by example and then shed some light on the importance of it. So Steve, look at your role, what winning looks like, and evaluate your skill and abilities of where you are. Then evaluate the effort that you're putting into it, and then the impact you have on your team and your boss. And then you go to your boss and say, this is where I'm at. Here's my skills. I'm winning. I'm not winning. Here's my current skills. This is what I'm doing to improve those. This is what I'm doing on the effort front so I can improve and provide better service to you and the team. And here's my impact on the team. I show up positively and blah, blah, blah. It makes the team feel good. I'm unified in our focus, whatever. And then communicate that. Those 3 areas, ability, effort, and impact. And your boss will like, man, yeah, that impact is really important, right? There's many ways that you can shed some light in regards to the importance of attitude around the office. Be that example. And in some cases, you might even want to do an assessment and report it back up and maybe put that on the radar for the boss to consider, maybe for the other employees in your team. And who knows where that might go. So don't be manipulative. Have the right intent, because that will taste and smell and people will see that on you. So don't do it as a way of like trying to manipulate people. Like generally do it, lead from the front, and never know. But worst case, you grow and learn. And if the impact is great on the company and there's some shift, awesome. That's great too.
Like it. What's next? Let's take one more, Kip.
One more. Bob Ross, how do you deal with fear?
I'm trying to think as I answer that when I have been afraid. I don't know that I've ever been, not ever, but I don't know recently if I've been so afraid that I thought something was going to permanently hurt or injure me or kill me. And that's how I approach it. what's the worst that can happen if I go through with this? You know, whether it's fear with starting a business or communicating how you feel to a woman, or
So mitigate the
having a
risk,
difficult. No, just play
mitigate
it
the
out.
risk and clarify the impact, kind
No, I
of.
don't even think mitigate the risk, because the risk will oftentimes still be present. The risk of you, for example, being rejected when you communicate your feelings towards a woman is still going to be there.
Yeah.
The risk of you starting a business is still there. You can mitigate that by hiring a coach and having the right capital and getting involved with people who have experience. Sure. Mitigating the risk is important, but just play it out. Let it unfold. Well, you know, if I don't go through with this, what will happen? If I do go through with this, what will happen? And then I think just having an attitude of courage,
Yeah.
that when things get, and decide that now, you're going to be a courageous person, that when things get scary or uncomfortable or you're fearful, that you're going to act with courage. And that's a virtue that is a priority for you.
Totally. I wonder how often people have this thought, same thing as Ross does, around, you know, not acting out of fear, and those situations commonly being related to what it means about me, and they've lost sight of why they're actually doing it. Public speaking, for as an example, you hear that a lot, right? A lot of people, they have fear of public speaking. Well, that fear has to do with me, right? Oh,
Sure.
I'm going to look this way, I'm going to get judgments or whatever. But if what I'm talking about is really important, and if I get connected to the reason why I'm doing this is to serve other people, I kind of lose my fear in it, because it's not about me and it's not about looking good, but now it's about something greater than oneself. And I just wonder how often we don't do something that's kind of great because we're not focusing on the great thing. We're focusing on selfishly what this means about us.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that answer a lot, because I think about that. If you run that through any filter, public speaking, if you feel like your message is so important that the world needs to hear it, then you'll get over your fear, because you sharing it is more weighted than you being afraid to share it. Or if you
Yeah,
starting the business because you have this idea that will really impact people is so heavily weighted that it will outweigh the fear. Or the way that you feel about this woman is so important that you want to communicate it, and it's so heavily weighted that if you don't, it almost seems wrong if you don't say anything.
totally. Totally.
I like that a lot. That's an interesting perspective.
Not really, not sure if it applies to all things, but probably most, I think.
Yeah, I mean, unless we're talking about you're in physical danger, you know, like
Yeah.
somebody's got a gun pointed at your head. Okay, that's but I don't know. Even in that, maybe there's something so important to you. Maybe it's another person where
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I got to protect this other person. So that person's so much more important to me that I'm willing to put myself in harm's way here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I read this, but I remember I've had this thought around the importance of dying without fear and how critical that is for your loved ones, more than it is important for you. Like,
Mm,
if you're fearful during that process, you're not serving your spouse and your kids. And you know, maybe at that moment, right, that I would have the courage enough to show up powerfully in that transition, in a way, as a final way of service, and put my own personal fears at bay for something greater. I don't know.
as you were saying that, I pulled something up. It's actually one of my favorite quotes. It's from Nathan Hale. He was one of America's first spies, if I believe. But his when faced with treason and death, he said, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." Like, what a badass!
Yeah, what a way to go out.
Like, if you're gonna
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
this is how I'm gonna go.
And he chose that probably over the human fear of, I don't want to die.
Well, of course he did, because I mean, you can't. It's not that he's not afraid of death. Of
Yeah.
course, like I would be. I mean,
Yeah.
all of us would be.
Yeah. He just chose something
He
bigger.
just chose. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Right
it.
on. Cool.
All right.
Let's wrap it up.
All right. So key thing, learn about the Iron Council, orderofman.com/Iron Council. We're opening up enrollment on the 15th of December, and we'll keep that open until the end of the year. This is to start with the cohort group in Jan 1. So if you want to hit the ground running in Jan 1, you need to join us this month between the 15th and the end of the month. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. You can connect with Mr. Mickler on Twitter and X and Instagram at Ryan Mickler. Maybe you give us a quick update on order and swag in the store, just so people understand if there's still available product and if,
Yeah.
the whole shipping update.
Yeah, there's still available product. If you get everything in by the 10th, no later than the 10th of December, we can get it to you by Christmas. After that, I'm still going to try to get it to you to Christmas. But it's going to be, there's a chance it won't, especially with busy shipping season and all of that. So I would say no later than the 10th. If you want to push it, you could maybe push it to the 15th. After that, yeah, you're probably not getting your package before Christmas. So that's store.orderman.com. And then Kip, if you would, you're doing some really cool videos on Instagram that I've seen that I personally enjoy. And I know you, I hear all these things, but the way that you present it is really powerful. Can you just let the guys know where to connect with you as well so they can see that?
Yeah, sure. At Kip Sorensen. So KIPPSORENSEN, not Swedish, but Danish. Really important.
SEN is Swedish.
Is Danish. EN is Danish.
Oh, EN is Danish. Got it. Okay, that's important. There you go, guys. There's your little
it matters
history lesson. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody's questions today. Hopefully, as always, we gave you some good answers. Go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.